I want to talk to you today about why we should be thinking about insulin rather than just counting calories to manage our weight and to make ourselves metabolically healthy. My name is Graham Keegan. I used to be overweight and I used to be a diabetic, type 2 diabetes, but I've got my weight down within my healthy BMI range, and also I've got myself into diabetic remission. So I know what I'm talking about. I haven't just written a book or sat in the classroom. I've actually done this for my health myself, and I can do the same for you as well. Calories, just thinking calories in, calories out, is just far too simplistic and doesn't take any account of the complexities of our metabolism and obesity. Because calories are not all metabolically equal. And insulin is the key hormone that plays a critical role in obesity and body processes and stores energy. We have to manage that to make sure that we remain healthy. Just to go back a couple of steps, let's talk about the macronutrients. There are three of them. All food is either one of these or a combination of the three of them. So that's fat, protein, and carbohydrate. And the body deals with these macronutrients in a very different way. Fat becomes fat. Protein is broken down to amino acids, and excess protein becomes glucose, and carbohydrate becomes glucose. And glucose causes the body sugar to spike and the insulin to spike. And this is the problem. This is the problem we have. And because what the body then does, with this excess amount of glucose from carbohydrate going into the bloodstream, the body then causes the pancreas to release insulin to counter this, to inform the cells that they need to be storing glucose to take it out of the bloodstream. If this carries on and on and on, and it can go on for years, if not even for decades, the cells become what's called insulin resistance. I'm sure we've all heard that term. And that's when they just don't respond to the insulin, so the body produces yet more insulin. So eventually the system just doesn't work anymore, and blood sugar then is constantly high, and you become not just insulin resistant, become pre-diabetic, and in fact diabetic. And this is when the problems start. So carbohydrate is the problem. This is the problem food for us. It's the modern diet issue which we all have, not only in the West now, but spreading across the world. Our bodies just aren't designed to deal with it. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors would probably have been what they call in a state of ketosis, but they had so little carbohydrate that they lived off ketone bodies. They actually metabolized fat, and they were pretty healthy and lean because of it. And particularly with carbohydrates, it's the refined carbohydrates and the sugars that are the problem. Yeah, all carbohydrates have sugar, but at least the unrefined ones, like wholemeal bread, actually release the glucose a lot more slowly than some of these refined carbohydrates, white sugar, pasta, things like this, and then just sugar in donuts and cakes and biscuits. That just causes the insulin to spike very rapidly. And what happens here is that when the insulin levels rise, the body is signaled to store this energy as fat, particularly in the liver and in the adipose tissue. And this inhibits fat breakdown. This process drives the weight gain and insulin resistance and metabolic disease, as I've said, like type 2 diabetes, despite the fact you may be restricting the number of calories coming in from carbohydrate. This is still what it's causing. Because these carbohydrate calories have a high GI. Most will be familiar with this term. It means that the actual glucose is released very fast into the bloodstream and causes the insulin to spike as well. And sugar is particularly nasty because it is 50% glucose and 50% fructose. And fructose is a major problem for us. Metabolically, we can't handle it at all. Because what it's done is exclusively metabolized in the liver. and that leads to fat accumulation in the liver and increased insulin resistance. And also, also what this does is that it switches off the signal to the body to say that it's had enough food, and so you keep feeling hungry despite eating lots of sugary food, which is a major problem. And this fatty liver issue it causes is now prevalent across adults and younger people as well, into children also, because they're eating so much sugary food. And whereas going back 20, 30 years ago, fatty liver would have been a thing of senior adults from drinking consistently too much alcohol, now it's a problem across all the generations as a result of eating sugary foods. This is an issue for us, a real health issue. So the concentration should be on controlling insulin, and so avoiding foods which cause the blood sugar to spike. That's what our that's what our focus, that's what our concentration should be upon. And so we should be eating foods that are rich in fibre and healthy fats. So plenty of vegetables and plenty of healthy fats. We'll go through these in a moment or two. But they have a much lower spike on insulin. Fat barely causes the insulin to spike at all. And in fact, there's nothing wrong with fat whatsoever. It has a very bad press, which goes back 40 or 50 years. But fat is perfectly healthy for us and should probably be the main focus of our diet. Again, more about that in a moment. We have to remember, of course, though, fat has twice as many calories per gram versus carbohydrate. Now, okay, so you can't just replace 100 grams of carbohydrate with 100 grams of fat, because you will have a obesity issue. It won't be causing your insulin spike, but there will be a long-term obesity issue. But the good news is that fat makes you feel full. And so you don't have these food cravings the whole time as you will do by eating carbohydrate foods. So in broad terms, a food plan for everybody, whether you're diabetic or not, or obese or not, it should be the food plan of what you eat should be high in healthy fats, so the likes of oily fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, avocados, nuts, olive oil, etc. That's what we should be eating. The bulk of our plate should be that. We should be moderate in protein, because we all need our protein, and meats, fish and seafood. And if there's some fat on it, fine. Skin on the chicken, absolutely fine. People saying you should be eating lean meat is a hangover from 30, 40 years ago. Fat is very healthy for us. And then finally, the third macronutrient group is carbohydrate. Now, what we eat should be low in carbohydrate and avoid refined carbohydrates and sugar. If you're trying to lose weight, it should be very, very low in carbohydrate. If you're diabetic and trying to get to remission, it should be very, very low in carbohydrate. And the carbohydrates you do eat should be the whole grain ones, because they, even though they have a lot of sugar in them, it's actually released over a longer period of time. Refined carbohydrates like white flour, white bread, pasta, pizza, cakes, biscuits, you need to avoid as best you can, but they're in so many foods, it's difficult, but you need to avoid them as best you can. And sugar, well, it really should be a no-no, quite frankly. I know we all do it, I do as well. I'm not setting myself up as some sort of paragon of virtue, but we really have to minimize this, because that's your problem. That's your sucrose and your fructose, which is going straight into your bloodstream. And I think also in general terms, we should be trying to eat food which doesn't have labels. A piece of salmon from a shop doesn't need a label. A packet of donuts does. And so a label is a good indication as to whether it's natural food or not. That's what you should be trying to eat. And the other thing I will say to you is this, and I try to remember this as I keep this in the front of my brain, is that we should be eating food which is fish from the sea, or food which is grown in the ground, or food which is fed on food grown in the ground. If you stick to that, you won't go far wrong. Okay, so which is what I like to say, wrapping this up, is that every Monday I do a live event held on Zoom, and that I cover a new subject every week. And that's on a Monday, 6 p.m. UK time, and you can register for that by following the link below this video. So that's all for today. Good to talk to you. Wish you best of health. Speak again soon.